This
However,
conference will now be recorded.
there we go.
Okay, well, I will just turn this over to you after I give you a quick introduction. Um, we were connected with Veritas Farms not that long ago, but long enough ago that we felt really strongly at Modern Sanctuary about having a quality CBD product that we could trust to really integrate into some of the services at Modern. And we offer the signature CBD Veritas Farms massage, which we absolutely love their products. And I thought it was so important to get them on the call today so that we could discuss really all about CBD, what it is, how it works, how to find a quality product, what products to use, when to use them, how much to use them. Because I think there's so much confusion as the market gets slammed with the popularity of it, because it is such a great product, that I really wanted to bring in an expert to talk to everybody. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to you, Derek. I'm going to mute myself and get rid of my face so no one has to look at it. And we'll take it from here. I know people are excited to hear.
Well, thank you, Alexandria. Don't go too far because I love having you around, but really excited to talk to your audience today. And I'm happy to answer any and every question. So please don't hold back. Feel free to any deep kind of question you might have been nervous to ask. I'm really happy to get into anything that you might be wondering about. A little bit about Veritas Farms. We were founded in 2015. We actually do own our own farm, extraction and manufacturing facilities. So we are fully vertically integrated, which is really rare in the CBD and full spectrum hemp oil place. A lot of brands will either partner with a farm or a private label manufacturer. Sometimes this takes place in Europe, in Southeast Asia, of course, in North America. And then the products all kind of coalesce into the marketplace. And ultimately, unless you're buying from a single sourced farm, it's challenging to know exactly where all of your raw materials came from. And in hemp, that is crucial to know because the hemp plant is what's called a bioaccumulator. So it pulls lots of good stuff out of the soil, which is why it's so good for us. But it also can pull a lot of bad stuff out of the soil. It's really like a sponge. So it's really, really important to know where your CBD or full spectrum hemp oil company is sourcing their products, and then the full manufacturing process as well. And again, very unique to Veritas Farms is that we do the entire process internally. So we own our 140-acre farm just outside of Pueblo, Colorado. On the farm, we grow, we extract and process our oil, and then we send our oil up to Aurora, Colorado, just outside of Denver, where we have a 30,000 square foot manufacturing facility, storage, warehousing, and fulfillment. And that is our fully contained ecosystem. So we actually grow and manufacture all of our products. We're very proud of that. And it allows us a level of transparency that a lot of other brands just can't compete with, because we can show so much testing, analysis, and not only that, but our processes are as well. So we put all of our tests, all of our third-party tests online. They're all full panel tests. That's something very important when looking for testing. So not only do we test for cannabinoids and terpenes, and of course THC, but we also test for heavy metals, pesticides, fungicides, herbicides. We test for biocontaminants, residual solvents, and we put all of those tests online for every single one of our products, but not just every single product, every single batch of products that we manufacture. So when you go onto our website, you can type in the lot or the batch number of your product, and you're going to pull up a third-party certificate of analysis for that specific product. We really feel like that's the only way to operate in this industry until there's federal regulation, where all brands are competing in the same kind of equal playing space, and the testing standards have been adopted nationwide. We're not there yet. So unfortunately, right now, it's really important that you, as the consumer, do your own due diligence into the brands that you're looking for. And I think that's a great place for us to kind of jump in with any questions that you might have about how to find quality, how you can use the products, all those kind of things. So that's my opening spiel, I guess, and I'm really excited to hear what you guys have to ask.
Awesome. I know that a bunch of people wanted to know, what makes a quality product, right? Like there's something about extraction processes too, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
that's the question. Sorry.
Sorry. Was there any additions to that?
Yeah, just like I know that some products during the extraction process will use chemicals that can get into it, and really quality extraction processes to keep the product staying healthy for you to ingest.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great question, and there's so many steps between a hemp plant and a tincture or a salve, and they're all very important. And at Veritas Farms, we happen to do most of them or all of them internally. So, and you're right, extraction is an incredibly important part of the process, and really the important, it begins with the plant. So I'll kind of walk you through the steps of our manufacturing process, and then the different points of control and quality assurance that we put in. And that'll really kind of give you a good idea of what you should look for, what real quality is, how to tell quality. So it starts in the ground. It's one of the most important things when it comes to quality is the different type of CBD products that you could buy. So on the lower end of the efficacy, on the lower end of the results that you're going to find is a CBD isolate. Now, that's the isolated CBD molecule, which is one type of cannabinoid. It is a very common core cannabinoid along with THC, but it is just that isolated CBD molecule. So in full spectrum hemp plants, you're going to have anywhere from 100 to 150 different cannabinoids, CBD being one of them. And it is a very impactful, very beneficial cannabinoid, but it's only one. And when you have all those cannabinoids, along with terpenes, flavonoids, even the chlorophyll in hemp, it all acts synergistically inside of our bodies to amplify the benefits of each other. So CBD will amplify the benefits of THC, which will amplify the benefits of CBG and CBN and CBDV and CBDVA and all these cannabinoids. So CBD by itself is called isolated CBD, and it's effective. It's good. There's a lot of products that use CBD isolate. It's especially good if you're a government worker, if you're in the military, and you're concerned about drug testing. This is really the best benefit when it comes to isolate, is with the vast majority of isolates, as long as it's been tested, there is no THC, which means you have a very, very, very low chance of failing a drug test. Outside of that, there are not too many reasons that a consumer would gravitate towards CBD isolate instead of full spectrum hemp oil. Full spectrum hemp oil is, of course, the CBD molecule, but it's the presence of all these other cannabinoids, terpenes, and flavonoids as well. And that is how you get a much, much more efficacious product. So by any and all means, whenever you have the choice between an isolate or a full spectrum product, that is the first and biggest differentiator of quality, is an isolate product versus a full spectrum product. So we always suggest, whenever possible, always try and use a full spectrum product, whether you're taking it internally or externally. And the vast majority of products that we make are full spectrum because we believe in the efficacy, the science is there. And a really cool moniker that you can Google, which really maps this out in a really cool way, is the entourage effect. That is what this effect is known as. When you have all these cannabinoids together acting synergistically, it's a scientific term called the entourage effect. There's tons of amazing white papers on the efficacy of the entourage effect that have come out of Israel and Europe. So that's one of the biggest differentiators of quality, is full spectrum hemp oil versus isolate. Now I'm going to throw another term out there, and I apologize, but there is a third form of CBD products. It's called broad spectrum. Broad spectrum is in between CBD isolate and full spectrum. What broad spectrum is it's the presence of all the naturally occurring cannabinoids except for THC. So broad spectrum is essentially an approach to do a full spectrum hemp oil with just the removal of the THC. So if you are looking for something that is a THC-free product, but you do want as close to the entourage effect as you could get, then you can also go with a broad spectrum hemp oil. But again, the presence of that little bit of that THC molecule is very, very beneficial in amplifying the benefits of all the other cannabinoids. So unless you're worried about drug testing for your employer, if you're in the military, then there's really no reason to go broad or isolate. You always want to go full spectrum hemp oil whenever possible. Okay, so that's full spectrum hemp oil, and that is what we do. That's what we believe in, and that's what you should always look for first. The second thing when it comes to quality is the source of the oil. So whenever possible, you either want to work with a farm that's fully vertically integrated, like Veritas Farms, or you want to work with a partner, a brand who partners closely with their farms. So I hate to shout out competition, but a brand that does this very well is Charlotte's Web. They do own some of their own farms, but because of their size and scope, they do outsource as well. And in our opinion, they partner very closely with their farms. They monitor them very closely, and you can follow that journey on their website. Another great brand that does this is Medterra. So there are some companies out there that, despite not having their own farms, they do put that transparency in their story all the way back to their source. And then their testing protocols also show the cleanliness of their products. So really, really important to have full spectrum hemp oil and to know where it's coming from. Anyone who isn't super forthcoming and transparent, not just in the source of their oil, but in this entire supply chain, that's a big cause for concern. So that's one of the first things that you should be looking for, is how readily available, how present do they make the information about their supply chain if they're not fully vertically integrated. So that's the second thing to consider. Now, Alexandra had a great point, which is talking about extraction. There's a few different ways to extract these cannabinoids and terpenes and flavonoids from the cannabis plant that have been developed. And these actually haven't been developed for cannabis specifically. These come from, vegetable oils and extraction of essential oils. And this technology has been around. It's just been applied to cannabis now. So the first type of extraction is what's called CO2, or supercritical CO2 extraction. It's a very scientific and laboratory type of process. It's very violent in the process itself. And it's essentially using supercritical cold CO2 to freeze and shatter the cannabis molecules to extract different compounds out of them, cannabinoids, terpenes, things like that. It's a very unnatural process. It's actually very unsafe in the lab, so it requires a lot of laboratory preparation. It requires a lot of OSHA standards, things like that. And again, it's a little bit of a violent process. And the critics of CO2 believe that they know that it doesn't fully extract all of the cannabis compounds. So it's great at extracting cannabinoids. It's not great at extracting terpenes and flavonoids. So a lot of times with the CO2 extraction, it's great for making a CBD isolate product, not so good for a full spectrum hemp oil product, because you're going to lose a lot of those minor cannabinoids and terpenes. There are a lot of companies that use CO2. It's one of the two dominant extraction methods on the market. The other one is ethanol extraction. Ethanol extraction is what Veritas Farms practices. We practice it since about mid-2016. We did start by doing supercritical CO2 extraction. We found it to be a little bit inferior in terms of the cannabinoid ratios. We had less cannabinoids, less terpenes in our extractions. We also found it to be not as commercially viable for us. So we've gone with an ethanol extraction, which is really the other core type of extraction technology. The reason we like ethanol extraction, and I'll try not to get too scientific, but it's a really interesting read if you have a moment. Ethanol extractions extract both polar and non-polar elements of the hemp plant, and those are charged particles. Polar and non-polar, what the key thing is here, how they are absorbed in the body. And whether they're absorbed into fat or absorbed into water. Some compounds that come from the cannabis plant absorb in your body via water, some absorb into the fat. For example, cannabinoids, THC binds to the fat molecules. That's what creates the affinity for it to be carried into the endocannabinoid system. So it's really, really important whenever you can to have all of the compounds present that absorb into your body in the best ways possible. So in supercritical CO2, only getting one part of that polar versus non-polar, that's why you're only getting the cannabinoids. You're not getting the terpenes, you're not getting the flavonoids. That's why we've gone with an ethanol extraction. It naturally extracts both non-polar and polar parts that will dissolve into the water in your body and parts that will absorb into the fat. So you're really getting much more bioavailability from a ethanol extraction. So we believe in ethanol extraction. It's safer, it's more natural. Essentially, ethanol is fermented plant liquid. So we are soaking our hemp plants in fermented plants. Of course, everything is food and medical grade ethanol, containers, all those kind of things. But those are really the two camps. And there are a lot of great companies that make great products using CO2 extraction. We just believe in ethanol as it's a little more natural, it's a little cleaner. But Alexandra, you do have a great point that we're very forthcoming about, and that's with ethanol. If you have a careless manufacturer who doesn't have strict quality control procedures, you can end up with an ethanol extraction that has some of those residual solvents still in the formulation. And that's a very big concern. And that's why we use third-party tests and we have our lab analysis which show no residual solvents in our products, because it is something that does need to be cleaned up when you do an ethanol extraction. Now, that's not to say that using a CO2 extraction, you don't have particles that are unwanted in there as well, because you do. So those are kind of the two camps. That's how we look at it, in ethanol being superior. And then just to kind of take you a little bit further down the manufacturing and supply chain, once we've extracted using our ethanol extraction, we have these big, beautiful batches of just crude oil. That's what we call it, crude oil. And it literally looks like the oil that you would drill out of the ground. I mean, it's dark and it's pungent, and it's super muddy almost. And from there, the first thing that we do is test it. We test it internally, and that we also test it with a third-party lab. This is our first stage of testing. We are tested once before as a plant by the Colorado Department of Agriculture to ensure that we're following the THC guidelines. But this is our first third-party independent test to confirm, again, cannabinoid profile, terpenes, and the lack of any solvents, biocontaminants, anything like that. So we're looking for all those things from the very first time we test the batch oil. From there, when we have this big batch of oil, we will then turn it into a formulated good. So for example, we'll turn it into the base of our tinctures, or we'll turn it into the base of our salves. And from there, we'll kind of have the base for those formulations. And from that point, we can go into a specific scent or a specific flavor. And we will test at every point of that. So we'll test that big batch of crude. We'll then test it as the base tincture. Then when we turn it into our final 1,000 milligram, peppermint tincture that is in a product, that will be our end commercial test. And those are the tests that we put online. So I think that those few things are the very, very important things. You want to look for full spectrum. You want to know where it's coming from. And then don't take the company's word for it. You want to see that third-party certificate of analysis that tests for all those different factors: cannabinoids, terpenes, all the heavy metals, pesticides, fungicides, herbicides, and that COA needs to be very visible. What Veritas Farms does, and what you want to try to look for, is on every single one of our products, we have a lot number, as do any good consumer packaged goods manufacturers, put a lot number on their product. Our certificate of analysis is correlated to the lot number of that product. If the company that you're purchasing from does not do that, then you cannot be sure that the COA is tied to that product. It might be from a similar product that was created 2 years ago, and the manufacturer hasn't done a test since. So it's really, really important to look for that little bit of detail. Veritas Farms does a great job of making sure we get that for every product. So that was a lot, I know, so I'm happy to go back to any of that or answer any other questions.
I have a question.
What?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
So my question has to do with use, and use for pain and use for arthritis, and your suggestion as to how your product, of which that's the only product we're using, how often, if one uses it every night, does there all of a sudden become a point at which it's not really helping you? At least that's what we're finding. Or maybe the absorption is no longer doing its trick. The pain would be for a shoulder that you can't sleep on because you have some problem with your shoulder. The neck, as an example, with arthritis, in older people, you can only turn it halfway and you can't really turn it all the way. And we found that your product is really great, but then all of a sudden it stops working. Can you explain that? Can you offer suggestions? And is there something we're not doing properly? We're using your 1,000 milligram cream.
That's great to hear, and thank you for the question. So before I started the answer, I do want to share, and this is something that we always put forward kind of immediately in these conversations, and that's any suggestions or any conversations around these kind of topics. We'd like to make it clear that the FDA has not approved our products or any cannabis hemp products for any type of pain management. So when we talk about things like arthritis, even sprains, bruises, plantar fasciitis, any of these types of pain conditions, especially of the inflammation type, there is no FDA approval to actually suggest that this will treat or help in that pain. Now, that being said, there is so much anecdotal evidence that it's essentially hard not to consider it valid at this point. So One way that would suggest this is that we do private label manufacturing. So we make products for other brands in the space. And we actually private label manufacture for the largest rheumatology network in the country. Closed network of rheumatologist doctors. There's about 1,000 doctors in a 1 million patient network. And we make all of their full spectrum hemp oil products that they sell in their practice for their fibromyalgia patients, which is of course an inflammatory condition very similar to arthritis. So we know the efficacy is there despite the federal government actually kind of sanctioning the use of these products. So that's why we make some of the products geared towards these conditions, even though we can't necessarily talk about them in like a clinical application. That being said, I'm really happy to actually address your question now, but it is important that we kind of paint that picture. The last thing that Veritas Farms wants to do is represent ourselves in a way that is not sanctioned by the federal government. We always toe the line. It's very important for us to do that. That's how we've worked with organizations like Modern Sanctuary for as long as we have. That's why we're in over 5,000 chain retail doors, and it's because we walk that line very carefully. And we're very honest about the federal government's position about the efficacy of these products. So anyways, that being said, when it comes to pain and topical use, the most important thing to understand is that this is a very new plant and very new exploration of use. And there are so many variables that we're just coming to understand. And they're all incredibly impactful in every individual. Size, weight, age, sex, metabolism, even the state of your endocannabinoid system. So if you're a heavy marijuana user and you're looking for an effect, whether it's locally or over your whole body, you're going to have a very different experience than someone who has never used marijuana before. And it's because the state of your endocannabinoid system is just used to absorbing, different amounts of phytocannabinoids or plant-based cannabinoids. So all these factors are really, really important in how it's going to work for you. And then it also is going to depend on the condition that you're looking for relief from, how bad the condition is, how pervasive it is around your body. So all of these things are really important to consider. And that is why we suggest an approach, especially, and I love that you asked the arthritis question because it's a really, really interesting approach that I'll suggest. And where we have seen the best results and the feedback that we've gotten so far is a two-pronged approach. The first, and you're doing it very well, is the application of the 400 or the 1,000 milligram salve right to the troubled location. So if it's your shoulder, if it's your neck, and I'm glad to hear that you're using the 1,000 milligram instead of the 400. That's what I would suggest, especially for severe pain. So there's a couple things that are going to happen over a prolonged use period from just that one product in that one location. Your CB1 and CB2 receptors are going to build up a slight affinity in that location for cannabinoids. So it's almost, you can consider it somewhat of a tolerance to the cannabinoids. So there's a couple things that you can do. And we see this happen pretty often. And what a lot of people do with a lot of good success is they up the amount that they're using. So for example, if you're applying it once a day in the morning, I would suggest to apply it once in the morning and once in the afternoon, or possibly 3 times a day. You can also up the amount that you're using. So if you're using a pea size, you can use a little bit more. But here's the really neat trick that you can try where we have seen a real amplification and an extended period of results. And that's when you start taking it both topically, locally where the pain is, and then internally as well. So when you take a tincture internally, it's actually fighting inflammation and those pain signals throughout the entire body. So when you can take the tincture or the capsule internally, I would suggest the tincture specifically for this one, and I'm happy to get into more details of why I would suggest the tincture, but I would suggest using the tincture inside of your body, which is going to attack the inflammation and the pain from the inside, and then using the salve topically, locally, wherever the pain is. And we've seen a lot of great success from people who have kind of experienced the same situation that you're talking about.
Thank you.
How do you know what dosage would be appropriate? Because whether it's like a tincture or, gummies or other.
Yeah, and this is a challenging one too. It's very similar to the question that Ann just asked. And actually, Anna, the same answer to Alexander's question kind of extends to your question as well. The other thing that you can do when taking internally, especially let's say you start with a 250 or 500 milligram tincture, if you're not feeling the results that you're expecting, we would suggest that you escalate that to 1,000 or 1,500 milligram tincture, take the same amount in the same time frame, and then monitor your results. And Alexandra, that's the same exact thing that we suggest when considering starting any type of dose. So for example, if you are a 24-year-old college student who just has a little bit of anxiety and you're looking for some relief for that, we would normally suggest starting with a lower strength milligram tincture. So that would be the 250 or the 500 milligram, using it once a day as the serving suggests. But it's really important, especially when starting any type of cannabinoid therapy, that it's used for a duration of time consistently and that the results are monitored. So you start using the 250 milligram. Let's say the way you want to do it is every morning when I wake up, I do my 250 milligram tincture, and then I monitor myself for that week. And it's really important that you at least give yourself 7 to 10 days. A lot of times, depending on the state of our endocannabinoid system, we need to build up a little bit of affinity in the system to really start seeing the benefits. So that's what we would suggest is no matter where or how you're using it or why, start with a lower dose, use it for at least 7 to 10 days and monitor your results. And then you can do one of two things. You can either decide that you're happy where you're at with the results that you're achieving, or you can increase the frequency of the doses that you're taking or increase the strength. And then we would suggest that you do that for another week and monitor the results. It's really interesting. We watch the customer journey on our website, which is where we get the most data. And we see, I would say roughly 80% of our audience come in and they start at the 250 or the 500 milligram tincture or the 10 milligram capsule or a 400 milligram topical. And then usually guaranteed within 60 to 90 days, we see that same consumer gravitate up towards the 1,000 milligram salve or the 25 milligram capsule or the 1,000 milligram tincture. So the absolute best way you can start is with the lower doses, but really taking them in a schedule, in a routine, and monitoring that for a few days.
In terms of the different products, I know, is there times when it's better to ingest it versus, I know that they also make, CBD pens that you can vape or drink. Are there times that one's better than the other, or is that personal preference?
It's a really interesting question. And the answer is both. Sorry.
And then there's lollipops and gummies. So, it's like,
And
how do you...
lollipops and gummies, and I think I saw suppositories the other day. I mean, there's just every way to take cannabinoids, right? And I think we're only going to come out with more and more. And it's a great question, and the answer is both. So it does matter, and it does depend on what you're looking for. And actually, the fastest way to intake cannabinoids is actually through the lungs. And if you think about that, if any of you have ever consumed any medical cannabis or recreational marijuana, when you smoke it versus when you ingest it, the time to onset is very clearly different. So when you smoke cannabis, the onset until you start feeling high is going to be roughly 30 seconds to 2.5 minutes. Whereas when you ingest, when you eat an edible, well, it's going to be roughly 30 minutes to an hour. And the same thing is true on the CBD side, on the non-intoxicating side. So when we inhale CBD or when we inhale full spectrum hemp oil, it goes right into the lungs and almost immediately into the bloodstream in about 30 seconds. The tincture is the second fastest or second most efficient way to absorb cannabinoids. And the tinctures, of course, you absorb them through the throat glands by allowing the tincture to sit under the tongue. So that's the second most effective way, the second fastest onset. It also absorbs the second highest amount of cannabinoids. So it's going to make that product is going to be the second most bioavailable way to intake cannabinoids. Of course, the third is ingesting. You can do that via a capsule, a gummy, any type of lollipop or treat. That's going to be absorbed in the GI tract. And that is the third most effective way. So, and if you want to look at it by a percentage, inhaling via vape or actual combustion is going to get you over 20% absorption. Tincture is going to get you roughly 12 to 15%, and an ingestible is going to be below 10 at about 7 to 8% absorption. Now, that doesn't mean the rest of the cannabinoids are just going to flush out in your urine. They can be absorbed in the lower GI tract. They can be absorbed in a couple of different ways, but that's roughly the how that kind of shakes down. So then we talk about topical. When you use cannabinoids topically, it's only going to be absorbed and efficacious locally although it will enter the bloodstream, it's not going to have much of an effect outside of that local area that you apply it. So it really depends what you're looking to do. We have, for example, some people who have lower intestinal inflammatory conditions. They take our capsule, and they take our capsule because it's going to make it all the way down to the upper and lower GI tract, and that's where it's going to be absorbed locally, and it's going to be much more efficacious there. We have many audience members and our customers who like the tincture, and the tincture is great because it's absorbed in the throat glands, and it's much more efficacious in the brain for mood, for spinal, back, upper neck and upper back areas. So it's really interesting to kind of consider what you're using it for, and then how the body absorbs those cannabinoids, and almost to carve out your own therapeutic campaign. So for example, if I had a lower back condition, my approach would be to use the capsule because I know that's going to be absorbed in an area near my near the back, and then to put a salve directly on that area. So it really comes down to a couple of things: preference, and then what you're treating for, and then also perception. You know, there are a lot of customers who like to vape CBD because they can feel the onset of the relaxing element immediately. Then we have other people who they love that same relaxing element, but the last thing that they want to be doing is vaping. So it really comes down to personal preference, lifestyle preference, and the results that you're looking to achieve, and then, you know, the comfortability around the type of product that you're looking to use.
If you were in a pickle, like, and all you had was a tincture, could you apply it topically?
Yes, 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 yes. I actually love our tincture topically. I get seborrheic dermatitis all over my face here. Sometimes I get it. Sometimes I look like a leper. And I actually stopped using our salve and lotion on my face, and now I just use our tincture. And it really comes down to ingredients. You know, the tincture, especially if you get an unscented tincture, it's two simple ingredients. It's organic coconut oil, organic MCT oil derived from coconuts, and our full spectrum hemp oil. So when you think about that, well, both of those ingredients by themselves are great for the skin, so together they're great for the skin too. So yeah, you absolutely can use it topically. I use it for a kind of inflammatory skin condition, almost an aesthetic reason, but you can also use it for pain as well.
Very cool. And then there are different carrier oils, right? That's the MCT, which is the coconut oil, and then there's hemp oil.
Correct. Yeah. Some people choose to make their products with a hemp oil. They suspend the CBD into hemp oil. It's a little bit kind of cooler of a story. You know, we have our full spectrum hemp oil inside of our hemp oil. The reason we didn't take that approach, even though we do like the story, and hemp oil itself is it's a very beneficial oil to use, whether you're cooking or anything. You know, it's full of omega-369 fatty acids. It's a really good clean oil to use, but the taste is very off-putting. And you know, we wanted a product that many could gravitate towards. That's why we don't use hemp oil, but it definitely is a popular carrier oil. There's nothing wrong with it. It can be a lot of fun. It's just sometimes the hemp oil taste is pretty strong. There's other carrier oils too. We've seen grapeseed oil. We've seen sunflower oil. Ultimately, we felt like MCT was one of the cleanest, one of the healthiest, and one of the most easily attainable. Along with the taste is very easy to formulate into other tastes as well. So that's why we went with MCT oil.
And you can cook with it, or would that disrupt the other oil, the carrier oil too?
Yeah, you could cook with it, but what happens when you heat up cannabinoids, especially, you know, over about 115, 120 degree mark, you're going to start converting those cannabinoids into other cannabinoids, and sometimes they're cannabinoids that you don't really want to convert them to. So for example, CBDVA could be converted to more THC. The THC could be converted into THCVA. The CBD could be degraded down into an acidic version that isn't as valuable. There's nothing to be concerned about if you do want to cook with your tincture or your full spectrum hemp oil. You're not going to increase the THC amount. You're not going to create some type of rancid, something that's not good for you. You just might decrease the efficacy a little bit. So that's a really good question, and that kind of goes in line with storage. Really, really important to store your cannabinoid products away from sunlight. in at least a room temperature type of setting. So don't keep it in the garage, don't keep it in your car window, and don't expose it to direct sunlight. Try not to cook with it unless you're really excited about some new formulation. But yeah, heating it, especially past 120, will start to convert the cannabinoids to compounds that aren't as efficacious.
Got it. Very cool. Danny had a question in the chat. How long should you keep it under your tongue before you swallow?
At least 30 seconds. If you can get closer to 90 seconds, that's going to give you kind of maximum absorbency.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you.
One thing that we,
yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. I was going to say one thing that we haven't talked about was pets yet, and it's such an exciting part of the industry for me. I'm a pet lover. I'm an animal lover. I've got 2 cats. They're both a little crazy, and we've recently launched Veritas Pets, and we have partnered with some incredible organizations. We have made some incredible products, and the stories that we get from the pet owners about the whether it's they now have an older pet who, not necessarily like a puppy, but they're up, they're mobile, they're active again, there's life to them. Let's say you have a pup who just has a really hard time during fireworks or thunderstorms. We've gotten rave reviews on the Calming Chew. So the efficacy of full spectrum hemp products in pets is just on the cusp of becoming the next major trend in pet wellness. And the responses that we have gotten, whether it's from felines or canines or horses, I mean, it's really, really exciting part of the industry. And I really think that pet owners who are looking to increase the health and wellness of their pet should really consider cannabinoid therapy for pets. It's a really, really efficacious. It's interesting. Pets, especially cats, actually have more cannabinoid receptors than humans, so they respond even stronger to it at lower doses. So if you're looking for increase in mobility, if you're looking for an improvement in anxiety in your pet, I really, really strongly suggest you consider full spectrum hemp oil products for pets. Get your dog off the Xanax, get your dog off these weird pharmaceuticals that they're prescribing to our pets, and get them on something natural. It really works. I think Danny has another good question. What are some examples of health ailments that CBD is particularly great for treating besides anxiety, which I feel is the most obvious? This is a really tough one for us to answer, but I'm happy to do my best at it. And again, it goes back to what we can legally say and what we can't say for CBD and full spectrum hemp oil. But I think if you kind of expand on the anxiety piece of it, and you kind of zoom out to the endocannabinoid system, and you look at all of the different functions that our endocannabinoid system regulates, it is a fascinating system of neurological receptors inside our body. And can I mute Christine's mic? Yes, I can. All right. Sorry about that. So the endocannabinoid system, and when you look at all of the different functions that the endocannabinoid system is responsible for, it gives you a really good idea of all the different things that full spectrum hemp oil can help you with. So for example, the endocannabinoid system is either directly responsible for or is a major component of so many different bodily functions, everything from diet and appetite to mood and emotional state, to pregnancy, hormonal functions, pain and pain suppression. It's also a pre and postnatal modulator. There's so many different bodily functions that it's responsible for. So when you zoom in on a couple of those, let's talk about the emotional responses. So of course you're talking about anxiety, but we're also talking about PTSD, panic disorder. There's many addiction therapists who are starting to come out and work with CBD and full spectrum hemp oil in addiction treatment. So there are a lot of modalities, not just around anxiety, but around all of these type of mental conditions that can help with improvement. Then you look at inflammation. CBD has been amazing for inflammation, and there's actually 2 conditions where CBD has been approved by the FDA as a pharmaceutical drug, and that's Epidiolex. Epidiolex it's CBD isolate. It's available by prescription only, and it's used to treat childhood seizure disorders. That's Dravet syndrome, and there's a couple other ones where children are having a couple hundred seizures, sometimes a day, and that's reduced down to sometimes a couple seizures a month. So that's one example of where there is an actual FDA-approved clinical application for CBD. Going back to inflammation and pain, which is another broad stroke kind of modality that full spectrum hemp oil can help regulate. And it's really cool because when you look at inflammation, there's many different types of inflammation. External on the skin, that's my dermatitis. Internal, that's arthritis. That's in the, of course, muscular and tendons. But there's gout. There are all types of other inflammatory stomach conditions. And all of these different types of chronic inflammation can benefit from full spectrum hemp oil. Now, we've had a lot of people come back to us and say they've seen an improvement, but they haven't seen a cure, or they haven't seen a total reduction in symptoms. And that goes back to all the other factors that are causing those conditions: lifestyle, diet, stress. But augmenting, with full spectrum hemp oil can help support and lessen those symptoms that you're seeing. And again, in the beginning of the conversation, I told us we were taking this all back to the endocannabinoid system. Ultimately, the endocannabinoid system's primary function is to regulate homeostasis in the body. Homeostasis is, of course, the balance of our internal functions when weighed against external aggregators, stressors, things like that. So homeostasis is the body's way of balancing our internal functions versus all of the stuff that it's experiencing in our external world. So whether that's pollutants or stress or whatever it is, the endocannabinoid system's job is to make sure that our body is balanced and is operating and protecting ourselves against all of these outside factors. That's ultimately the goal of full spectrum hemp oil or cannabinoid therapy, is to bring your body as close to homeostasis as possible. And when you do that, you're going to find that all the modalities that full spectrum hemp oil and the endocannabinoid system regulate, any issues stemming from those things, whether it's inflammation, whether it's pain, whether it's anxiety, they're all going to benefit from taking full spectrum hemp oil, because you're increasing the homeostasis in the endocannabinoid system. So I know that that's a little bit 50,000 foot view. It might feel a little abstract, but that's the actual science behind how CBD can almost seem like snake oil, in that it can be beneficial for so many different conditions. Well, that's because all of those conditions are regulated by the endocannabinoid system. And that is how CBD works in the body. It's absorbed by the endocannabinoid system. I know that that's a lot. I'm happy to kind of zoom in or go back into any of that was a little unclear or you'd like to hear more of. But I do think the endocannabinoid system, and if you're interested, it's a fascinating area to read about. The endocannabinoid system actually evolved in mammalia and crustaceans 200 million years ago, was when it first started evolving in our ancient ancestors. And it's been a big part of evolution. It's in almost every type of mammal. It's in crustaceans. It's in quite a few different phylum in the animal kingdom. So really, really important part of the Homo sapien experience, but also very big throughout the animal kingdom, and really cool because there's so many different animals that can benefit from cannabinoid therapy. So I hope I didn't make anything more confusing, and I'm happy to try and clear that up.
I think you've been incredibly helpful. I know, there's so much out there that this clarifies so much of it, and you're very articulate in the way that you've laid it out. I find that very helpful. I'm sure everyone else does too. Thank you, first and foremost. And, we're so excited to be working with you to incorporate a lot of the products into our treatments too. We're looking to incorporate it into a facial also, along with our massages. And, it's probably really great after you get out of a sauna to aches and pains,
Right.
etc. too.
Yeah.
So lots of stuff we love to do with you guys. Does anybody else have any more questions before we just wrap this up?
I
I have one.
Danny asked me to.
Can I ask it with my voice? I don't know how to type it.
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, thanks so much for doing this. I love CBD so much. So I'm always trying to learn more, and I feel like it's hard to find the information for all the reasons that you've already said. So I'm just really grateful for this opportunity to talk about it because I'm super passionate about it. I smoke it. I have tinctures. I have salves. I have everything, and I recommend it to everyone I know. So, but what my question is, do you feel like using CBD is just a Band-Aid where it's sort of just like a very temporary fix, for an ongoing problem? Like how I would almost equate it to like taking a Tylenol. It's like taking a Tylenol is never going to help you cumulatively. It just kind of stops the pain in the moment, but actually Tylenol is pretty destructive because like we know it causes ulcers and stuff. So
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if there's any long-term effects to having the CBD sort of like accumulate in your body. Like, is it the equivalent of taking a Tylenol, or is it more the equivalent of like if you ate an apple every day, that would be very good for you?
Yeah, that's an amazing question. Thank you, Danny.
Why,
And
thank you
it's
for
it's a really important question too, because you're so right. So many people are replacing NSAIDs and Tylenols and ibuprofens with full spectrum hemp oil. So I'm going to address the first part of your question, which was, is it a Band-Aid? And the honest answer would be it could be a Band-Aid depending on how the user is using it. I think that most times the only time you're ever really going to see any type of long-lasting permanent result is from lifestyle change. And most conditions do stem from lifestyle, whether it's diet, whether it's stress, whether it's sedentary lifestyle. All of these things can kind of coagulate and harm us, unfortunately. So I think until whoever we're talking about, whatever condition it is, I think until that person takes steps to make a big lifestyle adjustment, then most approaches that they're going to take you could consider Band-Aids. That being said, no, CBD and full spectrum hemp oil is not comparable to an NSAID. There is no inflammatory response. There is, you hit the nail on the head with NSAIDs. You get ulcers, and you get all your stomach lining gets torn up, and all these kind of negative results. There are no known negative side effects to cannabinoid therapy, to taking CBDs, to taking full spectrum hemp oil. The only known one, which we've already discussed, is the potential to fail a drug test. There's no known drug interactions with any type of both over-the-counter or pharmaceutical prescribed drug. So those are all very good omens for the long-term use of full spectrum hemp oil. Now, the other important piece here is the temporary, short-term, and medium-term relief is inarguable. It is there. The long-term relief is going to come down to the symptom, the condition, the person, their lifestyle, the state of the endocannabinoid system, all those types of things. So, for example, a really good way that you could look at this as a long-term success story is the use of those pharmaceutically prescribed uses. There are children who have suffered from Dravet syndrome since they were babies, who are now almost teenagers. So you're looking at almost a decade of consistent use, where they've gone from, like I said, sometimes hundreds of seizures a day to a couple seizures a month. Those results have lasted throughout the decade that has started to be used. Now, we're also seeing experiences on the opposite side where just a week later, your shoulder still, it feels like it starts to hurt again. So the answer goes back to the condition that you're trying to treat or that you're trying to, benefit a little bit. So, it kind of comes down to, well, look, if you're looking to regrow an amputated leg, this is a ridiculous conversation. But if you're looking to wake up in the morning, you're looking to feel a little bit better, and you notice the pain is a little bit gone, you notice you're a little bit more mobile, you notice you have a little bit less anxiety, that's really what this is about. It's a wellness product for a well lifestyle. I take multivitamins every day, but I still eat a salad and I still take my full spectrum hemp oil. And I believe that the compounding effect of positive lifestyle changes will overall benefit everybody. I think that if you lead an absolutely sedentary, unhealthy lifestyle and all you do is supplement with full spectrum hemp oil, you will see a marginal benefit. but not as much as if you were to take multiple lifestyle improvement steps. So again, I think it's a really subjective answer, but it really comes down to the individual and what type of benefit they're looking for, and so many other lifestyle factors.
So cool.
Did that answer your question, Danny?
Yeah, that was great. Yeah, I just always feel like, because well, what's happened for me is I just love it. So now I just kind of take it all the time, and I'm just like, I wonder what this is doing to me, long term. And I have a very healthy lifestyle like you also. But I just kind of use it I have like some pain in my neck. And now, especially with the COVID thing, like I haven't been able to go to the chiropractor as much as I would normally go to a chiropractor. So I've been using it for like my neck, or like when my back feels a little out, or I really like to use it around my moon cycle. I don't know if there's any other women here who sometimes like it just really helped. Like I put it on my belly. So I have all different reasons for using it, but I always kind of ask myself, because I'm really into natural medicine and I'm just like a weirdo. I'm like, should I be learning how to deal with these problems like in a more sustainable way? Like, is it bad that I'm just putting a Band-Aid on it? Or is this product so good for my body internally, like a vitamin, that I should just be taking it anyway because having it in your system is good for anti-inflammatory anyway?
Yeah, both trains of thought, even though they kind of contradictory, I would think are correct. But I think that second train of thought is really the best embodiment of CBD, which is I take it every day, just like I take my multivitamin. I don't use it for anything specific. I use it because I know that it's great for inflammation, it's great for stress, it's great for my stomach, which I'm working on repairing kind of my gut and my flora and my fauna and all that. I'm really good for that. And I think just like a multivitamin, just like eating your greens or whatever it is, you can look at that product, this category, as a wellness product that you could use every day. And Danny, spend a little bit of time Googling about the long-term benefits of full spectrum hemp oil. You're going to find some really cool things. There's reduction in blood pressure, reduction in stress, increase in oxygen levels in the blood. So there's no known negative uses for long-term use, but there are quite a few, even if they're ancillary, not things that you were directly looking for. There are some really cool positive benefits to long-term use.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Great question.
Fabulous. Anyone else? I know it's just 3 o'clock now. Oh, Christine had a question. What if you have a blood cancer and you don't know if your doctor will tell you not to take it, but you want to try it?
Christine, that's a really tough one, because I personally want to give you any advice that could help you, deal with that. Specifically, when it comes to full spectrum hemp oil, I could not suggest whether it would help you or not. I do strongly think that it would be worth a try, even if it doesn't directly help you in your battle against the cancer. It could help you find some comfort, in the treatment process. I think the most important thing you could do there is talk to your doctor. If you're not happy with your doctor's answer, find a different doctor. And I would also do a ton of reading. Just be careful of the source. There are a lot of advantageous brands who are looking to position themselves as a cure-all. Personally, I haven't seen anything that would make me comfortable saying, yes, CBD will be great. For that, the science is not there yet. And I'm not sure of its efficacy in any types of cancer, especially against the blood cancer. But I think that it could help you find comfort in the treatment process. And I definitely think it's worth a conversation with your doctor. I understand you have a concern. You're not sure if your doctor will tell you to take it or not. I do think you should start with the conversation with your doctor, and then go from there. And if you don't like his answer, I would speak to a second or third opinion there.
Fabulous. Great answers. Well, I think at this point, now that it's 3, we should wrap up. I could ask a million questions, but I'm sure that leaves room for us to do some more stuff together. Derek, I cannot thank you
Definitely.
for how articulate, knowledgeable, and professional your company is, and how much we love the products. And we look forward to more stuff that we can do together.
Definitely. You, as I said, Alexandria, and I'm really happy to share with your audience, I'm fairly confident that Modern Sanctuary was the first spa that we ever partnered with. It's been one of our best partnerships. You have such an amazing, special place up there in New York City, and I hope I get to come back soon.
Yeah.
And not only that, Alexandria, we're launching some really cool products, which I'll tell you about later, that I think your Modern Sanctuary community might really appreciate. So I'm very appreciative to talk to you guys, Danny, and thank you guys for your questions. Wonderful talking. Alexandra, I'm happy to come back whenever, so just let me know.
Super, super. Well, thank you guys. This talk will be up on the recording site of all the past talks. So if you missed anything or want to share it, because it was so awesome, because I know I'm going to share it with a couple people, it will be there, and we look forward to more stuff in the future together.
Likewise.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.